to keep the moisture on there, and you'll see them start to poke out, and then you pull the board off. You got to keep them watered. They need to get to a certain stage before they'll stay alive. So we're going to put holes in this, fill this with soil. Excuse me. We're going to plant our seeds. They're going to start to germinate and poke their little heads up, and a carrot is like a little hair with 2 little tiny leaves on it. And I mean, it's small, right? A little strong wind, a little hard rain, you're losing your carrots, or they're gonna do what my lettuce did, and they're gonna travel and go in some other. And I like everything symmetrical and nice and neat in my garden until July, when you can't control anything and you can't even hardly walk through it. But so they'll start to germinate, and when they do, we have to be careful with this too, and we'll talk about this a little bit later. We don't want to put them out from the inside directly in the sun, because they can get burnt, they can dry out and get damaged because they're not used to the outside weather. But I'm going to put this inside of the garden bed, and I'm going to bury it up to the soil level in this egg crate, up to about here. And what this is going to do is, and it's wonderful, that's why I can't wait to try it, is it's going to keep the weeds down in between the carrots. It's going to space them perfectly. This cardboard is going to deteriorate, and it's going to add some nutrition or organic matter to the soil. It is food safe because it's being used with food, right? And it's going to they're all going to grow up evenly. They're going to stay more moist because that cardboard is around them. So it's all kinds of benefits. I can't wait to try this. So I'm excited about it. Maybe if I do another class and anybody else shows up, I'll let you know how this worked out. But I'm going to take a chance and try it out. It's supposed to be pretty cool. And then you don't have to babysit the carrots so much. All right, where are we? All right, so there are good seed sources. Okay. Deciphering seed terms and good seed sources. So good seed sources, Baker Creek heirloom seeds is what I was telling you about before. Fantastic, everything they sell is heirloom. They go to different countries and they bring seed over. They always have something new. Put it this way, it's the best seed catalog, in my opinion. I mean, look at this. It's ginormous. And I mean, they got so many things inside here. You can order it from the company. They have a free one that's probably about half this size that you can get. You get a visitor. Half this size that you can get for free, or you can pay a little bit of money. I think this was like $7. I forget how much it was. But you can find this at Tractor Supply too. You don't have to order it from the company. They do sell this certain catalog. And every year, I mean, the photographs are beautiful. They tell you all about the different varieties. And if you go on the website for Baker Creek, there's a lot of reviews. People that use this seed company like to give reviews. And it's nice because they'll tell what their growing zone is. So you can see if you might have the same kind of success. It's beautiful. Look at that. They use that to tint drinks. I think that's really cool. But I mean, you can sit in the wintertime when you're dyeing a plant and sit down with the Baker Creek seed catalog. I mean, they didn't skimp at all. Everything's color. It's just beautiful. I love it. There's High Mowing organic seed, which I've used their seeds before. Also good quality seed. Fruition seed is the one out of New York that I was telling you that's more geared towards our growing zone. So you'll have a lot of success with their seed. Then there's Johnny's. You can find a lot of organics. You can find F1s and hybrids and everything with Johnny's. They're also a little bit more local. Then there's Seed Savers Exchange, So True Seed. Well, that doesn't say true, does it? It says true. Then there's a Territorial Seed Company and MI Gardner Seeds. If you're looking to save some money, not only is he a good teacher, and you will have this on your thumb drive, also this information, he has great teaching videos, okay? You'll learn a lot. His name is Luke Marion. You'll learn a lot from Luke. But he also sells seeds now. And he used to sell them for $1 a pack. So, I mean, you could get a whole bunch of seeds from him for a pretty cheap price. He's now raised them up, I think, for $2, but we know that everything's going up right now. So let's see. So we'll look at what's on a seed packet. Okay, you got the company name, obviously. Let me see something. Okay, you got the company name. Where you buy your seed from matters. Because different seed companies offer varying qualities of seed, including germination rates, genetic traits, adaptations to specific climates, which we talked about, that can greatly impact the success of your garden. If you take a rattlesnake watermelon seed and you plant it in your garden, I'm sorry, it's not going to do very well. You know, those are those big, giant southern watermelons. But you know what we can do? And I remember coming to, when I moved to Athol, where my husband and I lived, they said, you're not going to be able to grow watermelons here. And I'm like, I think I'm going to try. Well, we've grown successfully different watermelons. There's that Fruition seed company that I was telling you about that does a melon called August Ambrosia. That is really nice. It's a great melon. It's small and it's oblong and it's just beautiful. It grows beautiful here. And we know we have the baby icebox watermelons. They're called sugar babies. That do really well here also. Let's see. We got the height and the width of the plant, which is important when you're planning out your garden. How tall the thing gets, how wide it gets, because you can be shading out. If you're planting a tomato in front of your lettuce bed or your tomatoes, it's going to shade it out, which is kind of good for lettuce actually. But you know, those smaller plants need to get equal light. There is the variety, not matching up here. Hold on, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Okay. So there is the seed depth, and that's important as well. So if I were to take a carrot seed and plant that a ½ inch in the ground, it's never going to see the light of day. It's a surface seed. You just want to put a little bit of a dusting of soil over that. And that's the other reason why carrots are so hard. They can be so hard to grow if you're not paying attention to them. You can lose them. In fact, I'm going to tell you something which is hard to admit in front of everybody here as I'm standing telling you how to do things, is this year is the first year that I lost every one of my seedlings all at once. And this is what happened. I planted probably 800 onions. No, we don't use that many onions. I give plants to people, especially my brother and his wife. And but anyway, I give plants to people. So I planted about 800 onions. I started planting my broccoli, my kale, all my cold weather stuff. And I neglected it for a couple days. Just as things were starting to come up, everything dried out. I had my heat mat on. And I lost everything. Nothing would germinate. And I was dying. Some of that seed was expensive. You know, I buy special lettuce seed that's pelleted and it's pretty darn expensive. And I lost it all. So I haven't really started anything yet. Like I said, after this class, I'm going to town. So there's light. Some seeds need light to germinate. Others do not, but you want to pay attention to that. It also, on the seed packet, will give you what you can use these things that you're growing for. They give suggestions. It will tell you how many seeds are in the package. It will give you a germination rate, like you'll see at the top in print, 98% germination. So you want to know that not every single solitary seed is going to germinate in that package. It'll give you about how many seeds are inside of a package. And here's a good thing for Baker Creek is I've found with them that you have quite a few more seeds than what they say are inside the package. So I love Baker Creek. They also have free shipping as long as you spend $12. It used to be that you could buy one packet of seed from Baker Creek and that would be it. Charlie, I'm sorry. Chris. So it used to be that you could just buy one packet of seeds. Charlie, come. Come on up here. Vicious little sunflower. But because people were buying like a single pack, sometimes, you guys must be not good people that are coming in. This is the late monitor. So I think oftentimes, like, I'll order a bunch of seeds and then I forget a couple of things and I'll order just a packet or two that I've forgotten. And I think they were getting so much of that they had to change it just a little bit. So let's see. All right. Hold on. And also it'll say whether or not things are good inside of a pot or whether they're better to be grown directly into the ground. It'll also give you sometimes, and not every seed packet has the same information. You know, sometimes they'll have just a few things. Other times seeds have, you know, seed packets have all this stuff or close to all this stuff. So it might tell you the origin of the seed, like who the breeder was, what country it came from, a little bit of the history. Like I said, especially on the heirloom seed packets. Sometimes give you tips for growing. It'll tell you what type of soil that this particular plant prefers. Its watering likes and dislikes, and its transplant times. Let's see. So we got direct sowing versus indoor sowing. So direct sowing. Why, what, where? Direct sowing is when you directly plant the seed into the ground. It's going to stay in that place until maturity, although sometimes you can put it in a movable source like, I know grow bags are getting popular now, but you can still be direct sowing. Sorry, I pulled this out of my garden shed this morning. This is a square one. I actually meant to grab a round one. I'm not really crazy about these square ones because you put soil inside of them and they bow. They just don't look good. I like things to kind of look good when I'm planting them. But anyways, this is made out of like a felt material, and I really like them. The only thing about them is they can dry out fairly easily if you're not watching them. So these are really wonderful, and you can get quite a few of them. I mean, you can make a whole garden. If you don't have an in-ground garden, or you can get a bunch of grow bags and pretty much have a whole garden of just grow bags. So it's where the plant directly goes into the ground or a container. The why is, there's several reasons to direct sow, and a few of them, more important than others, are some plants don't like their roots disturbed, okay? Some plants prefer being directly placed into the ground because if you replant them or transplant them, they have a transplant shock, or they may not even make it. It depends what it is. They just do better planted. He's sitting here staring at me. Being put directly into the ground, like carrots, for instance, but I'm going to do that experiment this year and see how it goes. Beets, turnips, your root crops, potatoes and things like that do much better when you put them directly into the ground. You don't want to plant, you know, a potato indoors. I mean, you can knock yourself out. You could actually grow it all the way to maturity indoors, but it does a whole lot better when you just plant it directly into the ground. Right, like I said, it's possible, but not recommended. I made the mistake of planting my watermelons early inside, which I still do plant my watermelons inside early, but I didn't have enough experience and I planted them real early. I'm thinking, hey, this is going to be great, not knowing how a watermelon grew, right? I had these tendrils that were like this long, and it took both of us to carry them outside to get them to the spot where they were. And even then, it's a plant that doesn't like its roots disturbed. So I went and put it in the ground, and it was like, hey, you know? So all that work and babying for this plant, not to mention the space I had indoors. Well, at the time I had, my husband's not here, we had a spare bedroom. There he is. And I took over the bedroom, and I laid out lattice, and I put sawhorses, and there were fans in there, and he's sensitive to smells, and I had grown all my plants too early. So I had tomato plants up in this spare bedroom that were like this big, right? I got lights and chains hanging from the ceiling, and our bedroom was like across the hall. So we went to bed every night to the smell of tomatoes. If you've ever picked tomatoes and then, you know, you can smell it on you after, right? It's really strong. Well, the plants smell that way too when they're growing. And it was kind of crazy. He didn't want that anymore after that year. So he's gone through a few things with me as far as planting. You know, things like peas and beans and corn, especially. Corn has shallow roots. You don't really want to plant it inside. I've done it before. Like I said, you can do this, but it's really not recommended. It's just going to be so much easier to. So where it says you may only have containers to plant in, and that's okay. You know, you can plant in containers, but and that there's a pro to that. There's pros and cons to that. You can root bound things. You just got to make sure it's the right thing to plant in a container. But it is good because the roots are never going to be disturbed, especially the grow bag. I mean, you could start this inside and then just take the handles, you know, grab a partner and bring them outside. They get pretty heavy when you put soil in them. Some of the bigger ones you just can't move. I mean, even my husband and I together can't move them. We have outside of our garden a bunch of grow bags that line the outside fence, things that deers won't eat so much, but we tried to move them. It ain't happening. They're going to be there until either we push them over and tip them over or they rot, you know, which I've been surprised at how well the grow bags hold up in the sun too, you know. I thought they would have broken down a lot more quicker, but they haven't. So, so you get the best of both worlds when you're planting in containers. That's another thing, like I was saying, and you can take that and move it to its final location outside. You can even, if something's getting too much sun, if you've planted something in the ground, you could transplant it, but chances are it's gonna go in transplant shock. You might lose your plant. You can just take a container plant and move it into the shade. You know, you can take those grow bags. You can have those big plants and plant them in there too. I've seen people plant corn inside of grow bags and been successful. Yeah, oh, another good thing that is about these bags and also about, let's see, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. About these, and I use these for my seedlings. We gave these away for our last gardening class, and actually, these are gonna be one of our prizes at intermission. This is called the nursery bag, and it's also made of fabric, okay? And one of the best things about it is, again, you gotta watch them because they can grow, dry out kind of fast if you don't watch them, but they stand up nice when they're filled. You can see through them. So that means that it gets air, right? It also, when a root touches the side of this bag and a root sees light or sees too much air, it'll stop growing and it'll reverse in the opposite direction, plus it'll send lateral shoots out, which makes a bigger root ball in the end, and it'll be a healthier plant. Another thing, they say you can bury these. I found them, I did the first year, And the roots do come out. In fact, if you plant them too close to each other, if you put these too close to each other when they're planted, their roots will go into each other's bags. So you got to leave a little bit of a space in between so they stop. If not, they'll just go right into their neighbors and you're pulling them apart. But so they say that you can plant these and they will biodegrade. They will, but it's going to take a little while. So the next year you're going to be digging in your garden and you're going to find a lot of these little things. So instead, what I do is, see this seam right here? It rips right down the seam. There's no roots that you're busting on the side, and it really lessens transplant shock. You don't have to worry about plants getting root bound, your seedlings. You don't have to worry about any of that. So it's really, I really love these. And you can bottom water. I have a tray. What a good boy. I have a tray underneath, and when these are set, it just wicks the water right up. But I like I said, those are great. All right. So indoor sowing, the whats, the wheres, and the whys. So it's self-explanatory. You're growing it inside under some kind of either an artificial light or a south-facing window. If you're gonna put your seedlings in a window, you gotta be careful because they're always gonna be stretching towards the light if you've ever experienced that. You gotta have the discipline to flip them every once in a while so they don't, you know, go in one direction, or they can have a tendency, if you don't have a south-facing window and your light isn't very strong, you're gonna get something called a leggy seedling. They're really thin and spindly. If that happens with a tomato plant, it's not bad, because if you notice on a tomato plant, the tomato plant has these little hairs. Every one of those hairs are a potential root. In fact, you can actually take a tomato plant and plant it sideways. Bury the whole thing except for a few leaves at the end, and that will form all roots underneath the ground. So tomato plants are forgiving in that area, but other plants are not. If they get leggy, you really can't do anything about it, and it makes for a weak and a sickly plant. And it's not like you can go back and you'll say, all right, I'll just plant some more of those, because you've already, your 6 or 8 weeks have gone by for your seedling to develop. You don't have that time again to plant something new and start over. So the whys, you got controlled conditions, and that's good for various reasons. First, the most obvious, you're getting an early jump start in the season. There are some things that I grow in my garden that I couldn't grow if I didn't start earlier indoors. And I actually have a 6 foot or 8 foot by 8 foot grow tent in my basement that barely fits down there. Another thing my husband was happy about putting up. It takes up a decent amount of our basement. But I can get a lot of plants in there, and I do everything under lights. I also have, again, something he's probably happy about, I have shop lights also hanging. I don't have all fancy LED lights, although those are pretty reasonably priced, by the way. But I have shop lights hanging down for things that are colder. If I'm starting lettuce that don't mind starting in a colder area, I'm in my basement, it's cold. I just put the shop lights on over a table, and I have those all lined up, growing lettuce and stuff like that. I plant lettuce directly outside too. You know, you can do that, that's fine. But I like coming, and you have these tiny little mini lettuces, and I share them with my neighbors and stuff, and you just put the plugs in, and it's nice. All right. So yeah, you get a jump start. You can control your conditions like crazy. Like our grow zone has colder temperatures, so we can do all the, like I just said, all the colder stuff inside. This also can contribute to a healthier and a stronger plant, you know. Although you have some things out in your garden, have you had volunteers out in your garden before? You have plants that just grow from maybe tomatoes that have rotted. They do well too, don't they? I mean, they're the strongest plants in your garden most of the time. Or in your compost pile. We've had tomatoes growing out of our compost pile. They do great. Another good reason is small and delicate seed, like we talked about. And I told you about my lettuce. Things like onions, peppers, melons, sweet potatoes need a much longer time to grow. They need heat. You know, peppers don't do well in the cold at all, and they need a long time to grow inside. I should have already, in fact, I lost my peppers this time around. I was so sad. It took me so long. So I start onions in early February so that they can be planted out in March, most of the time in March. As soon as you can stick your hands in the soil, you can plant onions. It's one of the first things that you should plant. But one of the first things that comes up in the garden is asparagus. Our asparagus comes up one of the first.
Are you planting the onions inside or outside?
In the beginning,
February.
yeah, in the beginning inside, yeah. February, the ground's still, you know, right now it's still hard. But as soon as it gets a little bit warmer, then yeah, I'll take them. And what they usually get about this big. But what I ended up doing this year, because I missed and I screwed everything up, is I ordered onion plants. You can buy onion sets. Have you ever had those? You notice you don't get very big onions from them, have you? If you can have the patience to plant onions from seed, and it doesn't take much, you can just take a tray like this or anything for that matter. And we'll talk about that too. We're talking about containers, but I have taken in the past these 10 by 20 trays. I just fill it with soil, take my onion packet, and they don't have to be pelleted if I'm not gonna plant them in single cells. And I sprinkle them out and I cover them over. And this is a seed also that's real tiny. So you're only covering it with a little bit of soil. It can dry out really fast. So you watch them, and as they come up, they all grow together, and it's okay. Onions are forgiving too. They end up growing this giant root mass on the bottom. And I literally I can pick up the onions by their oniony tops, and you flip it over, and it's one big solid root mass, and all I do is, you know, tease them apart, and you got them. And at first, when you plant an onion that you've grown yourself, it looks sad. It can fall over, you know, it looks pretty sad, and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? I'm not gonna have any onions. And then at the end of the week, they're standing up tall, and they're the best onions you'll ever grow. I grew Walla onions this year that were this big, just like the store, and they were beauties, you know. And look, where am I? I still have onions from last year. I got this out of my basement this morning. You know, same with potatoes. I still got potatoes. I store them dirty because they're better off that way. If you wash them, they can get diseased a little bit quicker. You know, they'll rot a little bit quicker. So I just wash them before I use them. These are small. These are the last of my potatoes that are left. Don't be fooled. This is the last of my onions that are left. This is not my biggest onion, okay? These are storage onions. They're fantastic. And if you're gonna grow, we grow long day onions here in our area. That makes a difference. You'll see short day and you'll see long day. You wanna grow long day onions. Don't even bother with the intermediates, okay? And if you wanna save an onion, look for a storage onion, okay? This is, I think this is an Australian brown. We've grown these a few years and I'm really happy with them. They're really still pretty firm. But pretty soon what I'll end up doing is cutting these up and either sticking them right inside of my freezer. We have a dryer. I can dry these and make onion powder. You know, there's a lot of things you can do if you still have a lot in your basement. I made a big giant pot of onion soup, you know, but still going strong. But those, some of my bigger onions were like this, but those are the ones that I have a tendency to grab first. Let's see. Yeah, and like I said, I start the melons, but melons grow fast. They grow really fast, so you got to be careful. You don't want to start them too early. You're going to be having the trouble like I had. And of course, peppers. So the Y's, oh, the heat mats, right. So heat mats. We're gonna give away some heat mats. These are small ones, and they're the size of a 10-20 tray, okay? They can be a little bit pricey. Where's my heat mat? I have these at my house, okay? Because I have such a large growing area, I have these guys. I can fit 5 trays, 10-20s across this. Sorry about my sound. And they actually have these attached to them. I hang these, and you can adjust the temperature. So the germination of a pepper, they might need 75 degrees to 85 degrees. I can control that. You don't want to keep your seedlings on a heat mat the whole time. You just want to keep them on there until they germinate. Peppers I might keep on a little bit longer because they're heat loving anyways, but when something germinates, you should really take it off the heat mat because it can also become leggy because of the heat. It's trying to get away from the heat and it'll stretch, and you'll end up having weak seedlings then too. Another things to do when you're growing your seedlings indoors is you want a wind source. I usually have a little fan. Sometimes I've had a big brrr fan going down in the basement all the time, and I hook it up to a timer. We also have a timer that we're going to be giving away. There's a double timer in there that you can hook up to whatever light source you're going to be using, and it'll shut your lights off and turn them on. You don't have to worry about doing that yourself, which is nice. I have mine set up on that. Okay, so there are some what, whens, and whys. So seed starting mix and the characteristics and the things that you can add to it. Seed starting mix should be lightweight, okay? It should, it allows for better aeration so your roots can move. Roots need air as well. They don't want to grow directly in the air, but they do need oxygen, believe it or not. It needs to be, the lightweightness adds to the drainability of the soil, and it's crucial for young seedlings to develop a healthy root system. And they have very delicate roots. They need ample air pockets inside of that material to grow properly without getting waterlogged in dense soil. And also in a dense soil, those delicate roots can't push through. They're not going to do very well. A lighter soil makes it so that it's easier for tiny seedlings to push through soil. Also, you want well-draining soil. To prevent waterlogging, like we just talked about, you can actually get fungal diseases in your plants, and something called dampening off will happen. Your plant will look beautiful. You go downstairs or wherever they are the next day, and they're fallen and they're dead. They literally will rot right at the soil level, the top of the soil level, and you'll be like, well, what happened? Some of the things that you can do to avoid this is, Sherry,